Anyway, without further ado, this is a long one, okay? But it's pure detail, and I'll never let my foot off the FBA neck because they're the enemy. Even the ones who don't know they're the enemy, guess what? If you claim FBA because you heard a couple times and now you married one down the hill or three letters that you
Now,
weren't
you would
saying five
think
years
by
ago,
what he's
guess what?
saying
You're in my line of sight. You're the enemy.
that
So if you
this
don't
was
get out the
really
way,
about
then drop the
FBA,
name. If not,
but this is
hey,
mostly
you're a clear
about
impersonation.
ADOS,
Anyway,
and
that's
it
all I
is
gotta say.
long, at least
Afro
from
Think
what I
Tank earned
saw,
some
and I
details
think I
to bring
probably
you.
saw
Have you heard of
the first
ADOS,
5 minutes.
American Descendants of Slavery?
I don't know if I'm going to do the whole thing. It's my Sunday. I might just do the part that I watched already and pick up on it and do it in multiple parts. Because I'm looking at it, this is 47 minutes. And the portion that I watched so far, it was really just repeating what was in the Harvard video. So let's play it. And like I was saying, with Afro Think Tank, I'm not even sure if I recorded this part, so I'll say it again. I'm not a Pan-Africanist. I should be. I'm probably someone that falls in that category. That should be. But I agree with Yvette Carnell. You could call me a sentimental Pan-Africanist, but there's no political efficacy through Pan-Africanism right now. And that could change, and may it change, may it not, who knows. But the possibility of it changing, to me, it starts with having a political agenda in your own backyard. You push reparations to the point where it's not just 1 year where it's debated on a national stage. And really, I don't think it should even be debated. I mean, it would just be consistent. But I'm saying that because I don't think Afro Think Tank is as much a Pan-African as he is just someone with partisan bias. He's just a staunch Democrat. So that's why this stuff floats well with him. Whenever he hears anything anti-Trump, like that triggers the dopamine. But the issue that I have is that if you're consistent and you hold Democrats to the same standard as ADOS, then, well, I'll get to why I mentioned that. Then I'll get to that because that's difficult to talk about. Let me just go to it.
How
And I
about
might fast forward through some of this and
FBA,
talk over it.
Foundational Black
He starts off
Americans?
okay in the sense that he's
I
not
first
straw
encountered the
manning,
term FBA.
but the reason why he's starting off without just lying or even straw manning, he's describing FBA and ADOS pretty accurately. It's just a setup. His market, and I'll tell you exactly what this dude is. I can tell exactly. You don't repeat these lies unless you are sent by the DNC. And the reason why they're targeting ADOS with the same lies as they've been targeting them with, it's because ADOS raised the money to push a reparations bill. The Democratic Party is against reparations at the top, at least at the leadership. At least at the top of the leadership, they're against reparations. Specifically for black people descend from slavery and economic apartheid. They'll go with reparations for other things, or other people. They're fine with that. So since they can't combat ADOS with the political demand, they have to lie. And there's an abundance of broke content creators who will carry the water. And that's why I would say right up from what I've heard, and I'll play it, this guy is just any old sellout.
In the comment section of one of my YouTube videos on the Harlem Renaissance. One comment read, "The FBA families didn't migrate anywhere in the United States. They simply moved from one part of their country to another, and the term African American is null and void." I've noticed the term used by more and more black Americans.
And that's true. Why would you say that people migrated. I don't like that term. This is a way to de-Americanize citizenship. Because people actually leave countries and go to America. They go to the USA. That's a different thing than saying, and I've heard people, and I'm wondering if they were responding to how he put that. They migrated to New York. Huh? Nah, I mean, that is not a migration when you are New York. Like it's your nation. You don't migrate to the grocery store down the street. It's the same nation.
Over the last few years. So what's the deal behind these terms and what are they really about? To understand ADOS and FBA, one has to be familiar with their complex interrelationship with the Tantan group, while ADOS and FBA...
No, there is no complex interrelationship with FBA and the Tantan group. There is no complex relationship with ADOS and the Tantan group. This is just a lie.
They primarily advocate for lineage-based reparations and identity for descendants of enslaved Africans in the United States. The Tantan group is a network of organizations dedicated to...
And I'm not even sure if this even exists. Because if you look up Tantan group, this guy's just a donor to different groups. So, and if you look at this image that he's showing, these are just people that he's connected with. So taken on board one place, Members USA, Scale Family, like it's connections. And the reason why I say, I'll just say it now, if you're going to hold people to the same standard, the only relationship that ADOS and others like Claude Anderson had with anyone within this network, and Tantan is deceased, by the way, but the only relationship they had was they had spoken at events with people who are somehow aligned with this network. I don't even remember what it was for Claude Anderson, but he spoke. He might have gotten paid. I don't know. He's never really, they never targeted Claude Anderson with this. It's always specifically at Yvette Carnell. They investigated and found that she wasn't paid when she was on a board for PFER, which is, I think, Progressives for Immigration Reform. And that's it. Now, I could go into why I think it's wise for her to have been on that board, especially considering that the Democratic Party was not and has not, or actually I think there was a point where they were going to, but they did not examine the effect of immigration on Black Americans. And I'm saying Black Americans because this is before there is an ADOS. And this was before recent elevations in immigration. So they're calling themselves progressive, but Yvette Carnell knows that they're conservative, so hey, let me see what they're talking about. They're going to do a study. We'll get the results. We'll see what's going on. And it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. She would want to study for how it affects us. She would want to see, verify that they're just not on some let's make America white stuff. And what they get from her is she's an actual progressive who's on the board, who's monitoring this. This is actually sensible leadership and government of an organization to have those types of checks and balances. So to call to what he's doing is to put her within or an ADOS entirely, the whole ADOS Foundation, based just on that. She's not even on the group right now and hasn't been for years. To then liken an entire lineage, if we're talking FBA, an entire lineage, if we're talking ADOS, and a nonprofit group that started after she had left PFER, to then say that they have a complex relationship is a straight up lie. And that sets a bad precedent, but it reveals what we're talking about. This has to do with ADOS raising, I think it was $100,000 to push a reparations bill through, I guess maybe I could say neoliberal, racist Democrats, Dixiecrats, who want the black vote without really engaging with reparations because they aren't passionately for it. They don't believe it strongly. It's the easiest argument in the world. If they really were passionate, it would be pretty easy. So I'm going to fast forward through some of this, which is just clear BS.
Driven by a white nationalist agenda. A direct organizational link exists through Yvette Carnell, a co-founder of ADOS, who served on the...
I mean, I'm saying reads because he's reading. You can see he's looking at the computer. But this sounds like he's just reading stuff from the original hits.
Explicitly aided by John Tanton. Beyond this...
He was deceased at the time, so explicitly aided means... And let me go back and say why this is really hypocritical, and if you apply the same standards. A good 65% of the Democratic Party currently receives multi-millions from a white supremacist organization, Zionist Israel. They are paid to look away and or engage in hate against a non-white people. They are paid to look away from genocide. And this is not, you don't have to go through a whirlwind pyramid to get to this connection. Kamala gets money from AIPAC. Biden, like it's the great majority of the, well, not great majority, I would say maybe over 65% receive money from AIPAC. And it's almost all of the top leadership, if not all. Hakeem Jeffries, Pelosi, Schumer. Schumer said that his one of his goals and missions was to make sure that liberals do not turn against Israel. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing.
Direct connection. Significant ideological parallels exist in their shared anti-immigrant rhetoric and the principle of lineage-based exclusivity, which, despite differing stated motivations, contribute to similar outcomes of restricting immigration and fostering internal division.
Now, Afro Think Tank said that this dude was bringing evidence. No evidence so far. He's just saying this. He's strawmanning. He's saying something without really providing anything to back it up.
There are strategic implications where the rhetoric and actions of ADOS and FBA, whether intentional or not, align with and potentially advance the broader political objectives of the Tanton Group, particularly concerning voter disengagement and reduced opposition to anti-immigrant policies within the black community. This convergence underscores how seemingly different political movements can contribute to a larger political ecosystem where extremist ideologies may gain traction by leveraging complex social dynamics.
You see what I mean? He just said a bunch of words to actually say nothing. ADOS has not had anything to do with a board on an immigration reform group. It didn't exist. The foundation didn't exist. If those are the ties that you're drawing up in your diagram, then they aren't worth nothing. This is comical. He's just stringing together some big words, that sound like it was written, not even by an AI. It sounds like it was written by DNC, which is probably partially AI or whatever. I don't know.
The American Descendants of Slavery, ADOS, is a political movement and term referring to descendants of enslaved Africans in the United States, primarily advocating for reparations for systemic injustices.
This is ridiculous. Enslaved Africans in the United States. This is why people were commenting under his TikTok. You're reducing, like you're withholding citizenship by describing people as Africans when they haven't lived in Africa. Their ancestors haven't lived in Africa. Like most of our ancestry, you gotta go back to damn near 16 whatever, 17. American slaves, compared to other places in the Caribbean where it may have been worse, they were getting killed and replaced. We were breeding. We predate America in ways that nobody else does. And what I mean by that, because people are going to be, well, what about the Native Americans? I wish we focused more on some of that history. I'm all for that. But when I say America, I'm talking about United States of America did not exist. But black Americans were all over the place before it existed. Predate. That's all I'm talking about. In ways that other people didn't. Why is that? Because the Native Americans had their own nations. Some may have, became Americans earlier or so as far as citizenship, but they were many times in other parts of the nation, what the nation would be. Black Americans were always within where the nation would be. Some left to Canada or Mexico, but the great bulk, the people that are still here now, were always like in the 13 colonies in the South. As soon as the Louisiana Purchase, just constant where the nation would be. Followed the nation, followed the creation of the nation. So if we want to talk about what America was when it was the Iroquois or whatever Native American group, I wish we had more history on that. I'm all for that. But if we're talking about USA, United States of American history, no other people followed the birth. You could say white people did, but most of their ancestry was after the 19th century. Most of their ancestry is early 20th century immigrants. Some will say, hey, we go back to the Mayflower. Most white Americans that you talk to, like, yeah, we came over here about 100 years ago, 130 years ago.
Of slavery. The movement and term originated from the hashtag ADOS, co-created by Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. Foundational Black Americans, FBA, is a lineage-based designation rather than a formal organization, identifying direct descendants of formerly enslaved Black Americans in the United States. This concept emphasizes...
Okay, now see how the term FBA forces him to say American. He still said, I think he said it with ADOS too, but then he said Africans after that. But that's really all FBA is. And from what I see, he stops talking about FBA here, which kind of makes sense. I wish more Pan-Africans would do what this guy did, this Democratic Hucklebuck, who might be an AI himself. I don't know. if he's going to call people robots and stuff. But what I mean by I wish they would do this is how can I put this? He really did just explain exactly what FBA is. It's a lineage. So you're talking about 40 million people. That's it. Like you don't have to be a fan of Tariq Nasheed. You don't have to do anything. So that's difficult to lie about. You're going to lie about 40 million black Americans? So I think that's why he dumps FBA here. And Afro Think Tank, who just played this video, maybe he goes back to FBA and we'll see. He can't, though, because he just described what it is. If you're going to say it's anything more than a lineage, well, you're going against your word. You just described it. It's just black Americans who descend from slavery. That's it.
A unique claim to foundational status and reparations, distinguishing them from other black people who do not descend from the...
That's not unique. And I'll tell you why it's not unique, because Laotians, Filipinos, Chinese didn't get reparations when Japanese Americans received reparations.
Formerly
nothing unique about that.
United States. And then the Tanton Group refers to a network of organizations founded by John Tanton, a figure identified as a white nationalist.
Did he really found, they're saying he did this single-handedly, but it's been a while since I even heard somebody running with this. He just donated to them, from what I remember.
And eugenics proponent. This network dedicates its efforts.
And he's also deceased, so are they still in favor of eugenics? And so they're in favor of eugenics, but they call themselves progressives, and they go out and get, or within this group, I don't remember if it was PFER specifically. I think it was PFER. Maybe not. But within this group that he's talking about, they had John Claude Anderson advocating for reparations.
Efforts to severely restricting immigration to the United States.
And notice he hasn't mentioned John Claude. I'm calling him just Claude Anderson. Sorry, he hasn't mentioned Claude Anderson.
Fundamentally driven by a desire to maintain a quote European American majority, end quote. Key organizations within this network include the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, the Center for Immigration Studies, CIS, and Numbers USA. The ADOS movement emerged from the hashtag ADOS, co-created by Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. At its core, the ADOS movement demands reparations for the system of slavery in the United States, specifically for American descendants of slavery. Their vision extends to a, quote, New Deal for Black America, which includes reparations and a substantial government-funded tax credit ranging from 50 to 75% for college expenses for ADOS individuals. A fundamental aspect of the ADOS identity is the call for a unique ethnic designation on census forms and college applications. Proponents assert that ADOS individuals and other black people are not the same. This emphasis aims...
They're not the same in... Give the context. Otherwise, what he's trying to make it seem like is it's a racial superiority. And he's going to make that argument. It's coming up.
To redefine the discourse around African American identity, shifting it from a broad racial category to one centered on specific lineage. A distinguishing feature of the ADOS movement is its explicit focus on black Americans who descended from U.S. slavery and its stated disagreements with black immigrants.
This is why you can tell that he's DNC. He's trying to teach white people. Let me explain to you. These bad Negroes over here, they want reparations and a substantial tax burden on you, and and they're xenophobic because they believe that black people are different from one another, and he's going to go even deeper in that, and they're connected with a group that believes in eugenics, and this is insane, but it works on boomers at least. You can tell that by the Mamdani election. Black boomers would eat this up.
Immigrants from Africa and the Caribbean. ADOS underscores this distinction by demanding separate census designations for ADOS and black immigrants. While the movement supports affirmative action for American descendants of slavery, it explicitly opposes such policies for all other ethnic minorities. Supporters of the ADOS movement have publicly criticized immigration, and their rhetoric has an anti-immigrant sentiment despite their denials of xenophobia. Their platform advocates for specific policies that would remove black immigrants from affirmative action programs and impose limitations on visas for African immigrants.
I don't know if that's true. I'm looking up some things, because to me, anything can be a lie. Wait, let me go back. Let me really fact check this dude. Because we can go to the ADOS website.
Immigration and their rhetoric has an anti-immigrant sentiment despite their denials of xenophobia.
Well, if you deny xenophobia, how is that anti-immigrant? And what is the sentiment? Like, what is the rhetoric? Like, you're just saying something. But he starts to say some things.
Advocates for specific policies that would remove black immigrants from affirmative action programs and impose limitations on visas for African immigrants.
Would remove black. Now, if you go to the actual ADOS website, they have an entire black agenda, and they have reparations. This is flat black. This is based on the stigma of what black became, and some would argue this isn't constitutional, but this is based on the stigma of what black became, right? Let's see. You can see, like, I'm pretty damn Afrocentric. I'm studying the Coptic dictionary, studying hieroglyphs, studying other stuff. Like, this is kind of my study browser. So, black business, cannabis, climate change, education, environment, immigration. Now we can go there. I mean, this looks like, considering you can't do, you can't do affirmative action based on race anyway. This really doesn't matter. So that renders this a lie anyway, because you can't do. And let me show you. This is the ADOS website. You can't do affirmative action based on race. You can based on immigration. So they already have, right now, without ADOS, by his standard, we're already second class to immigrants. Black immigrants, whatever they are, it doesn't matter. So, well, let's use education then. Let's look at education. Now, all of this, I believe, and I don't know, I don't think I've read this. I've read most of the site. I don't know if I read education, though. creating investments, innovation schools, must prioritize innovation for former black, colored, Negro schools and schools with predominantly black American student populations. That's flat black. That's just saying set aside some money for HBCUs. That's about the only type of affirmative action that we could offer flat blackness. That because that still happens. Like Trump does that. Incentives for hiring more black teachers. Let's see. Discourage criminalization of students with disabilities. So this isn't even talking about black people. This is just like, hey, we need to be better Americans, period. Yeah, like one of the criticisms of ADOS Foundation is it's too flat black and it's too pro-immigrant. So we looked at education because that falls in some sync with modern affirmative action, which is basically right now nothing except for HBCUs. So could look in black business, criminal justice. I mean, from what I remember, almost everything was flat black in this section, and that's difficult because it's arguably unconstitutional. Though you can make the argument that black is a caste, and you can show specific court rulings where black was described as a people that were like improved by slavery. And even like way back in the 19th century, they were whitewashed in Egypt through this same lens, because they had to make the argument that you could not have free black people or else it would burden them with their freedom. But if you enslaved them with a superior race, it would make them better. So to use that argument, they had to whitewash Egypt. There's a new YouTuber. I might put a link for him because I don't remember the name, but he replays these same articles that made this argument. He replays the court decisions through articles and through a book that he quotes frequently. Okay, immigration. That was the other one. A more ethical immigration policy for Black America. I've read this, and to give you the Cliff Notes summary, there's no real restrictions to visas except for they have to learn Black Americans' history and learn the debt that's owed. And that issue a tax credit when you have these people come over. Like, it's kind of a swear jar for immigration. And they need to pass a naturalization test to include Black American history. This is basically, this is just what you do if you're a reparations advocacy organization. You want people who come to this country understanding that you come to a place that owes a debt. Now, I've showed you the website. You can go there yourself. Here, you can see what the website is. And then you tell me, is he telling the truth?
Critics contend that these proposed policies would effectively relegate Black immigrants to a second-class citizen status.
Tell me if that sounds accurate. This is a website. You can go there and tell me if this sounds accurate.
The ADOS movement stance on immigration, which seeks to differentiate and disadvantage Black immigrants, creates an internal...
He hasn't explained how it would disadvantage Black immigrants because we don't have we don't have affirmative action. You can do affirmative action based on immigration status as a protected group. You cannot do affirmative action based purely on race. The exception, because and this is related to them still being wedded to the notion that we can educate them with our superior race nonsense, is HBCUs. And I showed you the website. When it comes to HBCUs, ADOS is flat black. Now, when it comes to reparations, it's referring to ADOS. 20 trillion to American descendants of slavery. It's not flat black anymore. That's the distinction. If you're going to say that that makes them a second class, then we're all second classes to people who've received reparations. Or I'll take it a step further. We're second class to grizzly bears, because we've had wildlife bills that were specific to grizzly bears. We've had wildlife bills that were specific to other animals like wolves, a bunch of other animals. We do this all the time. Sometimes it's just the forest or whatever, but sometimes it's specifically targeting an animal that's endangered in some sort of way. So reparations, by his definition, because that's when there's a distinction, to American descendants of slavery. By his definition, we're second class to bears. We're second class to wolves. We're second class to white Americans because they've received reparations in different forms.
Division within the broader black community. This viewpoint aligns the movement with a nativist perspective, even if its stated motivation is to secure resources for a specific lineage. This othering of immigrants, including those of African descent, echoes the broader anti-immigrant sentiment found in other movements. The practical effect.
Oh, it looks like the video is clearer now. You see where it says highvelphi? That's who it is. So I might look this dude up and entitle it by name, because I'm going in. I'm cutting this out right now. And I'm going in on Afro Think Tank for sharing this Sambo.
Of their immigration stance.
Because highvelphi is lying. Afro Think Tank is lying. How do you know he's lying? Well, look up. You can look up when Yvette stopped, when she ended her I guess, term or time on the board of Project for a New Project not for a New American Century. That's something else. What was it? It's Progressives for Immigration Reform. Yeah, I think Project for a New American Century, wasn't that like George Bush neocon type thing? Yeah, that was back then. That's a different animal.
With explicit anti-immigrant agendas. This convergence of objectives with other anti-immigrant groups.
And this is why I say this dude's a Sambo. The people that the DNC would rather work with when it comes to reparations are not clearly defining a harmed group. So their claim is just for show. It will not go through the courts. It doesn't make sense. It's not constitutional if you're rolling it to just black people. There can be some exceptions, but if you're not at least outlining a specific group to this extent, you're just playing games. And what they're doing, and that's just what they're doing. This is controlled opposition. But within the controlled opposition, There is some dissent. Some in Cobra people have made the same case that I'm making. They've pointed out the time when Pelosi told them to sideline reparations, and they were like, okay, we do that. And ADOS really can't afford to do that.
Suggests a potential for ADOS's specific demands to be co-opted or amplified by forces with broader anti-immigrant goals.
How would you... This is a very short position. See, and the reason why you can't do this with 40 million FBA is because you can't really strawman 40 million people. But you can't strawman this either. H-1B visas for tech workers, fast-tracking the mentorship program must be directed specifically at Black American communities to equip them with jobs for the future. And it's flat black, you idiot. I mean, you're going to co-opt this? Co-opt this? How? What are they going to do? Like, what anti-immigration group is going to co-opt this? What anti-immigration group is going to amplify this? If they did, that would basically mean that the Republicans were playing a LBJ game with the black vote. This is the ease into reparations. They're like, let's go screw the Democrats, but that is the scenario he's referring to.
As their rhetoric contributes to a climate of...
Dude, your beard is too graded to live a life of a Sambo, dude.
While ADOS leaders Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore identify as anti-Trump and lifelong Democrats, the group has frequently attacked the Democratic Party, urging them.
This is why. And what's the problem with that? If you have a problem with the Tanton group, then you need to attack the Democratic Party because of Zionism. Because that's far worse, and it's far more corrupt. They're getting paid to aid people. They're getting paid to ignore mass murder. I've seen recently Harvard, which is interesting because we're going to get to Harvard before I end this segment. I'm not going to go that much further. I'm already nearing an hour, and I'm not going to edit this. I'm just going to throw it on there. You're going to get it as is. I got things to do. It's a Sunday. But Harvard released a study on the missing people in Gaza, and it was 370,000 people. These are the white supremacists that fund the Democratic Party that they're not supposed to criticize? You have a problem with them criticizing them for that? You just said they criticize Trump. This is where the partisan veil is lifted. This is insane.
Black voters to seek alternative political avenues. Notably, pro-Trump and right-wing figures such as Ann Coulter and Ali Alexander have utilized the...
I don't even know who Ali Alexander is. Look, if you're a reparations group and you're advocating for 40 million people, you're a reparations advocacy group, you're going to have people who are pro-Trump who agree with you, and they will tweet something. That is, I don't know the Ali dude. Ann Coulter just tweeted asking what it meant. She didn't tweet like, hey, I support this group, reparations, bravo, hell yeah, and while we're at it, I also support their stance on immigration. None of that existed at all. She just asked what it meant. And I think Tone answered her. Because she thought it was African. He said, no, it's American. That's it.
ADOS hashtag. In addition, Yvette Carnell once appeared in a MAGA hat, which she later dismissed as a joke. Critics, including civil rights leaders, have accused Carnell.
Now, Yvette and Tone, if you listen to them, you'll come off saying, oh, they're liberal. Oh, they're anti-American imperialism based on their policies that they talk about all the time, free, even though there is Yvette has a Patreon, which I subscribe to, but still free. They're still free. You can tell that she's a liberal. You can tell that she's a Democrat. You can tell why she's a Democrat. You can tell why she's a liberal. She describes she likes politics. She's a political junkie. Tone is somewhat of a political junkie too. Tone just had a video talking about how we're exploited, criticizing Trump and Obama for Trump's tax policies, paraphrasing, and also Obama when it comes to the gig economy and how he ushered that in. And they've criticized Obama for other things. They're criticizing them not from the point of view of MAGA. MAGA doesn't talk about this. They're criticizing them from the point of view of black Americans who have voted Democrat for 60 years and are a bottom caste, who are presented policies that will cause them to remain an economic bottom caste by the Democrats. And looking at some of their other values that I've mentioned, some of those, so I don't have to rehash that.
Of engaging in xenophobic birtherism against Kamala Harris and promoting a black purity test described as nothing but self-hate cloaked in black self-love.
Why are you putting air quotes? Because he has to quote that this is what other people say. You can't quote a purity test because they didn't actually say it. Nobody has ever said that Kamala has to pass a purity test. So he's using air quotes to say, I'm paraphrasing something that could be described as, and this to me is borderline defamation. Because some people are not like me. They actually believe that there's a purity test out there.
A study, though subsequently retracted due to its methodological concerns, concluded that ADOS functioned as a, quote, disinformation operation that served the interest of the political right by discouraging black people from voting.
Wait, let me go back. Now this is where he just jumps the shark.
As a, quote, disinformation. ADOS functioned as a, quote.
Wait, we need to go back further.
Concerns concluded that.
Wait, we need to go back.
Subsequently retracted due to its.
Okay, a study that was subsequently retracted.
Concluded that.
Wait, I missed it again.
Subsequently retracted due to its methodological concerns. Concluded.
Methodological concerns. I had to do the pinky spin around on that. I read the study. I wrote a paper about the study. It was nothing but obvious lies. So ADOS had to sue them to get them to retract it, and are still suing them for defamation. And who is it them? Harvard. This is a lie of omission. And the paper was filled with lies of omission, but it had straight up obvious lies. They said that ADOS, the ADOS founders, downplayed COVID when the ADOS founders were telling people to mask up, stay safe. And we're telling them right away that this is serious, that this is going to be worse than expected, and to get masks, wash your hands, protect yourself. How can you know this? A simple Google search. Harvard's, their research team, could not do a simple Google search. No, they could. They lied. They lied. Another obvious lie was they said that people who tweeted ADOS were, and I don't remember the exact words, but they said that they did not respond to the death of Chadwick Boseman because there was very few ADOS condolences during the day that he died. And they did not say, and really that's just a ridiculous, evil metric to even say something like that. That's why I don't know what's going on with the court order. I mean, some of these, there was a court order or a lawsuit with Harvard that lasted for decades where Harvard had to pay people for using images of slaves, which were their relatives. And that went on for, God, maybe 8-10 years, something like that. I don't remember, maybe longer. So as far as I know, they're still in court over the defamation. And the reason why I think they have a great case, they didn't reveal that Chadwick Boseman died 10 p.m. I think it was 10:30 p.m. So they created some matrix about how many tweets ADOS had, wishing, offering condolences, and they did it within a day, the day he died, without understanding, making it clear that we're talking about 10 p.m. 2 hours. And that right there, and if you look at who's connected to Harvard, and that's why I say it's ironic, because Harvard is very Zionist in force. You have anti-Zionist elements, and they are coming out really explaining the depth of the genocide, the depth of it. Me and my double consonants. But you get where I'm coming from. This is ridiculous. This paper was retracted because it had clear, obvious lies. And when it didn't lie, it just made innuendos based on the lie. It just had assumptions. And that's what he's doing. He's lying and then making assumptions or telling lies of omission, partial truths completely out of context.
That ADOS functioned as a, quote, disinformation operation that served the interest of the political right by discouraging black people from voting.
That was another lie, because ADOS tells people to vote. The political leaders, not even political, I don't think, Antonio Moore has a role, maybe. He was part of the California Commission early on, and then some things changed, but that's a larger story. And maybe you can say it's political to be the chair of a nonprofit reparations advocacy group, and especially now that they've raised the money to push the reparations bill. So maybe I can describe it that way. But, and then he's doing the quotes too when he lies.
ADOS supporters as trolls and a mix of black pro-Trump racists.
And also, the reason why that was dishonest is both of them have made numerous videos explaining why black people should vote. That's another lie, and that's another reason why they have a great case for defamation against Harvard.
ADOS rhetoric is amplified on social media by bots, trolls, and fanatics.
This is another lie that was debunked by I forget this dude. He's maybe the only white dude. Maybe one of two, but anyhow, he tracked Russian and foreign and bot accounts, and ADOS doesn't have hardly any existence of a Russian account. Like, that's something you can look up. And they didn't provide any evidence contrary to this. No evidence was given. And how do you even define a fanatic? You could be a fanatic reparationist who just believes in it more than anything and is one issue voter. You could describe them as a fanatic. So this is just dishonest. This is lying. Now, maybe a quarter of the way in and I'll stop, but this dude goes on like we're talking.
Documented voter suppression campaigns, including the Russian disinformation efforts in 2016 that sought to weaken the black vote and infiltrate unified social justice movement.
This was a Pan-African group that he's describing. ADOS didn't exist at this time, and even then, the Pan-African group that he's referring to, they dropped that case. That was dropped. So, and I think the reason why it was dropped isn't a matter of guilt or innocence. It's a matter of they just don't care. That wasn't their target. They found out and they were like, okay, we want to use the Russian boogeyman thing. And I listened to the accusations, and even though I think maybe you could say they were technically guilty, it wasn't moving, it wasn't jarring. And some of the same people that criticized ADOS for this without any evidence when it comes to Russians, they still have events with the same Pan-African group that was, I think, one dude was looking at jail time and then it was dropped. So they were convicted. Like they were pretty firm that this went down. I remember this story vaguely. I just kind of read it, probably traveling somewhere out of interest. But I was not moved like this really mattered or anything. So I don't even have an issue with people platforming that group that was involved with the Russians, because I listened to it and it didn't seem that moving. It wasn't that big of a deal. But you can't platform them and then say anything about ADOS with Russians when you have absolutely no evidence. And when ADOS has said, hey, we did a little internet search on the people who engage with us, and we don't have a lot of bots compared to other people. We don't have any Russians. So like that was just completely made up, and it was made up by people like Malcolm Nance as a tool, and I go back to Democrats being against reparations, Democrats having a streak of anti-black racism that they deny, and trying to combat that by saying, hey, the people that are trying to break the caste, the ethnic caste that was created by human rights violations, these people, they're not even real people. They're robots. They're not even Americans. They're Africans and they're Russians. And that's just an extension of the defamation that Harvard engaged in. That's what I mean. This dude needs to be careful.
Criticism that ADOS functions as a disinformation operation, potentially serving right-wing interests by discouraging.
Tone went at people for a lot less than what this dude is doing.
Black voter participation represents a significant causal connection. A reduction in black voter turnout or a shift in their traditional voting patterns.
And another example of a lie of omission, if you are serious, you have to say why that article was retracted. You can't, and you just can't say it was a method. I mean, the method is not the issue if you're getting sued for defamation. And in their retraction, they didn't just say we had methodological issues. They mentioned that they did not have clear evidence for some of the things that they were saying.
Away from the Democratic Party would generally benefit conservative or right-wing political agendas. This connection implies.
Now, what he's saying, and I could make his argument better than him, because I'm not going to lie. ADOS had a down ballot position where they said, hey, unless we have some sort of commitment to reparations, vote as Democrats. That kind of makes the most sense. But leave the top of the ballot blank. The same people, well, another people, but there was the same tactic was used by people who were against the genocide, wanted to stop the genocide. And that did not, like, nobody assumed that meant, okay, they're trying to get people to vote for Trump. Now, some people were going to vote for Trump just to punish Biden. The majority of this, the great majority of the deaths in this current genocide were with Biden support. So I'm just calling it like it is right there. So you can make this same argument for people who said, hey, I forgot what they were called, but they were abstaining for voting top ballot. Same thing.
The ADOS movement.
And that was just that year. The last year, ADOS didn't, and this is probably because of the foundation, but they did not make any recommendations. Not Democrat and not up or down ballot. When Yvette, it's probably because she has a nonprofit foundation. I don't know if she can do that. So her position was that you have some options outside of the major parties. That was about it. And she criticized Kamala, Biden, Trump, based on valid stuff that probably anyone would criticize them over unless they're also owned or associated with Zionism. And even those that aren't, even like people who are Zionists, they still criticize Biden. Like you can be a Zionist and, someone like Destiny, he's a left-wing Zionist who probably preferred Kamala Harris to Trump. So that does exist.
Regardless of its internal intentions, has a strategic utility for advancing broader political objectives, particularly those of the political right.
How? This is something you hear a lot. Jared Bell, I always forget which one it is, he's made this case, and they never bring any evidence or reason, because if you listen to Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, they talk like black Democrats / black liberals, except for they're not big on the top of the party, and I've already gone over reasons why. My channel is filled with it. I didn't vote for Kamala. I didn't vote for Trump. So it's, I'm going to keep going a little longer.
The Tanton Group's agenda, which is deeply intertwined with right-wing politics and aims to restrict immigration, would indirectly benefit from a less engaged or more fractured black electorate.
And this is like, so what? So what? Even like this one of those things, even if it's true, so what? All the Democratic Party has to do, like Irami Frimpong said, have the discussion. They didn't want to have the discussion. It's, you vote for us no matter what we do, whether or not immigration is good or bad for you. Vote for us. And if Republicans are saying, no, it's bad for you, this is why I vote for us instead, so what? That's, if that's where you're going, again, this is why I said this guy is a DNC attack dog.
External, potentially malicious actors, bots and trolls, further support the idea of a deliberate strategy to leverage ADOS's distinctive rhetoric for political gain. This dynamic illustrates how seemingly distinct movements can contribute to a larger political ecosystem where the Tantan group's influence isn't solely through direct lobbying. It also benefits from creating a political climate where anti-immigrant policies face less resistance, partly due to internal divisions within potential opposition groups. Foundational Black Americans, FBA, is...
Okay, so now he goes to FBA. That's as far as I went. And I'm curious of where he's going to go with FBA. So I might continue this, but I'm going to stop right here. What this dude does, what this yellow-bellied Sambo does is consistently is he creates a narrative without any type of evidence, and if you're not an idiot, without any type of logic. Because his argument is that two left-wing Democrats are somehow going to influence anti-immigration policies, even though they have their immigration policy on their website. And I showed it to you. And I'll show it to you again before I end this. Hell, I'll read it. Let me move this over. I'm going to read it. Black agenda. Where is it? Immigration. Widespread immigration has been used to suppress black mobility for decades. We want to provide a more ethical pathway to citizenship. A more ethical immigration policy for black Americans. When scoring legislation, the Congressional Budget Office must incorporate the specific economic impact on the black American community in their analysis of any legislation regarding immigration. Unless and until this is done, the ADOS Foundation will reject and oppose outright all legislation and executive action around immigration reform. The government must adhere to needs-based approach when allocating the number of H-1B visa workers for tech companies that flow each year. Instead, target investment along with tracking mentorship programs and direct it specifically at black American communities to equip them with jobs for the future. The H-1B restriction must remain in effect until parity is reached in hiring and pay for black American workers in the technology sector. The government should issue tax credits and other incentives to tech companies that actively recruit, hire, train, mentor, and retain black American workers in tech. The Trump Department of Homeland Security must direct the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services to include black American history on the naturalization test. New arrivals to the country. Now, before Trump was there, Biden could have done this. He could have did all of this. But all of that video, it doesn't mention what Democrats could do to take the steam away so they don't have to deal with this resistance to immigration that he refers to. So anyway, let me continue reading. New arrivals to the country who seek citizenship must be able to demonstrate that they have a solid grasp of the totality of black Americans' specific journey, immutable contributions, and the specific debt owed to the builders of the country they wish to become a part of. Do you disagree with that? If you do, kiss my black ass. All DACA recipients and any other undocumented persons that seek a path to citizenship must pass the naturalization test as well. Why didn't the Democratic Party do this? It would have given us a reason to vote for them. But the Blue No Matter hooligans, their key is they want you to vote for no reason. So, I'm done. It's been an hour. Thank you, my friends. And may the forces of Ife bless you. And all them other good African gods. And, you know, if you rock with the Norse gods, them too. Who else is good for you? For my Kemetic spirits, them too. Who else is good? Who else can I throw in there? Get some Buddha, some Hindu gods, include them. We'll leave it at that.